Hello, today's review will be big, and this time it will be literally big because we are talking about Shanling's flagship player M9. It's the development of their ideas of M8. I reviewed it some time ago, but made on the next level, and this player is big in terms of size, in terms of amplifier power, in terms of battery lifetime, and in terms of price too. So, Shanling's M8 was a really interesting device, but they decided to further develop these ideas. They still using AK4499 as digital to analog converter, but this version with this digital to analog converter will be limited because they have stock only for the 500 units of this player. And later they will release a version with another digital to analog converter. Probably it will be Saber, but who knows. We'll see. They improved amplification stage here and it delivers even more power, almost up to 1 watt for 32 ohms load from the balanced output. And the battery lifetime is up to 18 hours, but that's of course on single-ended out. Balanced with higher power will give you much less work time. But another really important change here is that they used a new chipset. It's Snapdragon 665, and that means that it's faster and it can run more recent Android versions, and this player firmware is built on Android 10, so more feature proof. And of course here you'll get Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, USB digital to analog converter, all that stuff that you can expect from the modern player is present here. And also they increased onboard flash memory amount to 256 gigabytes. And price is also noticeably higher. It's almost $1,000 addition to M8 price, and its price is $2,800, which moves this player to the top of the line segment, where we have Kane N8, where we have Bluetooth Gold Touch, and Aston Kern Ultima is also not that far from that segment. So how this player performs in this price tier, let's find out. So here is the package. Also I've got stock leather case, we'll show it to you too. And here Shanling decided to implement maximum luxury, interesting foiling box with patterns that hints about their volume control knob. And inside of this box, traditionally for many high-end Chinese devices, you'll get a wooden internal box. It's pretty hard to get out. I actually did it this way. I turned it upside down and shaked a little bit. But because of that rubber inserts, it's fitting nicely into the transport box. So let's set it aside and let's turn it back. Really nicely built box with even lock here. On top you're getting paper with this pattern once again. Player itself, sticker that shows you what to do with micro SD slot, set of replaceable sockets, and here screen protector, manual, and USB cable. So as you can see, accessory set is pretty good. So here are replaceable sockets and tools to replace them. So let's make a pause. I will clean up the table and we'll talk about the design. In terms of exterior, of course it looks pretty stylish. Player is definitely big. Of course, compared with FIO's M17, it's slightly thinner, but actually, as you can see, in terms of size, they are pretty close. FIO is just slightly bigger. I'm thinking with fear about the time when FIO M17 will look like a small player. Because you know, like a few years ago when I first unpacked Aston Kern SP1000, It was a big player, but now holding it in one hand and, for example, M17 or Shanling's M9 in other hand, I think that actually Ultima is a kinda compact player. Of course, a bit heavy because of copper materials, but still pretty small and pocketable. So I don't think that it's a pocketable player, so it's more like non-portable but transportable device or something like that. But of course, in terms of design, it's really stylish. So as you can see, Shanling developed a new shape. It's really complicated in terms of metal processing, really skillfully done. Probably it's CNC machined, but I'm not sure, but maybe. And it's really pleasant to hold it. Actually, weight is not as big as you can expect for such a big player, but still, of course, it's on the heavy side. So on this side, you getting 3 playback control buttons. On the bottom there is a micro SD slot. It has 256 gigabytes of own flash memory and 8 gigabytes of RAM, but of course 256 will be not enough for many audio files, so you can expand it with micro SD cards. And USB connector, you can use it to charge and quick charge is supported here. You can use it as digital to analog converter, you can connect it to external digital to analog converter, you can access internal memory and files, so all that features you can use here. And work time is close to declared by Shanling, maybe about an hour less or so, but it's definitely depend on the load you'll be using. And on the side there is a knob. It's rotatable and clickable traditionally for Shanling and for many other manufacturers. So pressing it unlocks the screen and lighten it up, and rotating changes the volume. And here is a LED indicator. On top there is a replaceable connectors part. It's similar to the one used in the M8. So logic is pretty simple here. You're taking this replacement tool, you slide it from the side as it portrayed on the sticker, and then you extract it. Of course it's holding pretty tight, but you can disconnect it. Here is a ball that holds it in place, and you can get regular 3.5mm Pentacon and 2.5mm, and if I remember right, another one is 3.5mm balanced. So let's get, I don't know which one. Let's take this and just put it this way and slide, press, and that's it. So kinda neat idea in my opinion, that saves you from looking at that bunch of openings and holes on the top side of the player. Rear panel is traditional for Shanling, covered with, it's probably glass and or something that looks like glass, and really pleasant and soft to touch. And bigger part of front panel is occupied by the screen. Screen is actually nice, with good amount of brightness, nice viewing angles, resolution, and so on. But Shanling decided to use a screen with a notch. And of course the notch makes sense for the smartphones, because in this notch you'll get front-facing camera, you'll get maybe Face ID sensors or something like that. But here, of course, in the player, there is no frontal camera or something like that. So Shanling put here a small, always-on LED screen that shows time, battery percent. It shows current signal resolution, so it can be pretty universal in many aspects. And when the screen is off, actually it looks pretty nice. And when screen is on, it's just typical notch on the display. And the screen is good, nice responsiveness to touches, good viewing angles and so on. And thanks to the fast chipset, it also runs really smooth and fluid. As for official leather case, it's a pretty unusual. So it's lightweight, small, and as you can see, it's not full cover. It's just kind of bumpers that protect device from the sides and just holds its sides. But unfortunately, as you can see, it's not protecting the screen at all. Maybe I'm not wearing it correctly and it can be pushed deeper, but I'm really doubt about that. But actually screen level is higher than the edges of this protector, so if you drop it face down, there will be no protection for the screen. But actually I don't think that traditional case can do much in case of dropping. But at the same time it at least protects device from the back side and looks fancy. But in this case this leather accessory is more about stylish look and not about the protection, in my opinion. In terms of firmware, it's pretty standard for nowadays players. It's Android 10 with Google Play Store present and with company stock player Shanling and few additions. As usual, in this drop down you can see headphone and lined out mode toggle, and you can activate Android mode or pure music. Actually pure music it's same Android mode, but instead of launcher will be used just a player. 3-level gain toggle, and over-ear headphones mode is additional level of gain, but you can turn it off and then it will go back to the gain toggle. And USB mode, screenshot and screen off and screenshot, it's just traditional Android features. I don't know who need actually software button to turn off the screen. In the settings everything is pretty traditional. As usual, there is audio part. Here you can select headphones output and line out. Low pass filter mode, you can select one of the present. Gain, balance, boot volume, maximum volume, wireless playback quality, and here you can activate AirPlay. Not a logical placement for the AirPlay, but still it's here. And in the display, everything is common, so you can select, for example, dark theme, and the secondary screen you can see what's going on. Turn it off, synchronized, reversed, and always on. And here also in general you can select what buttons will be enabled when screen is locked. So everything is pretty traditional, and there is a separate application for the firmware update. Actually, when I tried, there was a firmware update, but I was unable to install it over the air because Shanling's update server was responding super slow. They have two and both were slow, so I download firmware and update it. But of course, main part of this player is Shanling's software player. It's traditional. If you've seen it before, it works the same and it feels the same. So here is main menu, library update, all songs, folders, albums, artists, genres, high resolution, and playlists. Also there is Wi-Fi transfer, access to network attached storages, and sync link for the remote control like HiBlink, FioLink, and others. And a bunch of settings. In the settings you can select language, sleep timer, resume playback when it's turned on, automatic transition from library to playback when you select tracks, keeping folders, pause when headphones disconnect, gain, and actually it's not gain, it's replay gain, so it's equalization of loudness. Equalizer is just a basic linear graphic equalizer. Let's go back. USB playback, HWA codec, lock screen, album cover, VU meter if you like, black or white theme, and library reset. And for example, here is the thing that I like. When you select some artist, you get the list of tracks and list of albums, and you can select either all albums or all tracks. So nice way of organizing media library. And of course, I won't update library now, so all songs. It's fast, it scrolls nicely, behaves well, so everything is traditional here. And here is now playing screen. You can add to favorites, you can navigate tracks, play order, change play order, see current playlist, can add something, delete, and so on. And additional, so I missed the button here. So additional menu will allow you to turn on equalizer, add to playlist, and so on. And if you like, you can activate nice VU meter. Anyway, in terms of software, it does almost everything what you can expect. There are some small glitches. I didn't face any, but people report some non-critical issues on the Holopainen forum thread. But in general, I received at least one update from firmware update, and Shanling is constantly improving and fixing bugs, so they will definitely squish vast majority of them. So, and in general, in terms of features, it's just a basic firmware that does everything what you can expect, including streaming apps, multimedia, and so on. And I forgot to mention, they also have their own solution to bypass Android resampling, of course, traditional for modern players too. Shanling decided not to change sound signature of their previous players drastically. They still prefer energetic sound with slightly boosted emotions and dynamics, but of course coloration here is less than they created for the M8. It's a more high-end player, and of course it sounds more natural and refined. As earphones, for example, I will use Fir Audio M5, and let's talk about the sound step by step. So bass go really deep, it controls well, and it has a slightly boosted tightness, so it's slightly tighter than it is in real life to make low frequencies more euphoric and slightly more highlighted. Of course, not in terms of frequency response, so it's not a bass boosting player. If you won't engage, of course, equalizer or something like that. It's just a bit of additional energy. Of course, it goes to maximum depth, it's controlled almost flawlessly, even the deepest layers of bass, and it has enough of power to squeeze good low frequencies even from power-hungry headphones. Resolution, of course, it's great, and also it's nice. It's really good in playing small nuances and overtones. So low frequencies is almost universal and fits nicely for electronic music and pop and genres that relies on the quantity, and also it fits nicely genres that requires quality, like orchestral music, some instrumental music, chamber music, so all that things that goes deep to the low frequency area with a lot of overtones and small nuances are played nicely, but at the same time slightly highlighted and boosted. And first example, it's Juno Reactor, Dakota, just good electronic music with interesting bass line, sounds really punchy, tight, and with a hint of additional impactfulness. And second example, it's actually a bit unusual. It's Metallica's Low Man's Lyric, and it has a slow intro and then starts that drum. Really interesting, pretty nicely recorded. Of course, spoiled a little bit by compression and post-production, but still sounds really tight and interesting, and this player definitely helps this drum sounds like it should be, like a big drum with low kicks. Mid frequencies are boosted in terms of emotions and slightly boosted in terms of dynamics. So vocals are a bit forward, aggressive genres and with distorted guitars, for example, is also slightly forward, and same applied for the good instrumental music, like lead violin will be slightly more forward and so on. It sounds not always absolutely natural or monitoring, but this player doesn't try to sound like that. It's created to give you more emotions and more engagement. So Shanling doesn't try to be monitoring audiophilic, they want to bring fun and pure joy. Imaginary stage, of course, close to maximum, not the biggest one, but close to that, both in width and in depth. And the player is pretty critical for the quality of records, but not the most critical, because it's not trying to be absolutely analytical. But of course, things like resolution, control and stuff is pretty nice here. We don't even have to say it about the player of this level. You'll get a big spacious sound, you'll get boosted emotion, so this player is created to impress you, not to give you absolutely natural signature. And as a first example of mid frequencies, I've got The Last Sled by the Tuomas Holopainen. Nice, interesting orchestral track with narrator part at the beginning that sounds great thanks to slightly forward vocals, and orchestral part is also sounds like hyper realistic and hyper engaging, to created to give you extra emotions. And second example is just actually the way I'd like it to hear. It's Pantera's Goddamn Electric, so aggressive, forward, brutal, so probably the way this track is created to be. But of course, thanks to good resolution, control and dynamics, it sounds really nicely. And the treble also has a hint of boosted presence, a bit of added energy, but I won't say that it's super treble forward or too bright, just a slight hint of added energy, and of course really good layering, proper control and resolution, maximum extension, so technical aspects are absolutely flawless here. Sometimes it steps aside from absolute 100% naturalness towards more energetic representation, but it's also fitting the overall signature of this player, because it sounds with additional hint of crispness, clarity and stuff that you can expect from Shanling's player. And first example, what is it's Take 5 by Arne Domnérus. Really like this album just at the Pawnshop as a test track, and also it's pretty good for regular listening. You know, usually my test tracks I don't like to listen them at free time, but this album it's absolute must-have in any circumstances. And of course it has a lot of small nuances and overtones that goes to the treble area, and this player definitely unveils them and represent nicely, renders them in a really technical and engaging way. And another track that I accidentally selected with this player and I stuck to it for whole 18 minutes, and probably, you know, I tried to avoid such words, but with this player I rediscovered this track once again for me. Because of slightly boosted nuances here and there, it sounds even more epic. It's one of the best Iron Maiden's epics, but it sounds even more epic than it was recorded. And that fortepiano introduction, and I really like that small nuance that Bruce Dickinson learned to play piano for this track, to compose it. and then violin part and vocal, and then the slow development of this track, and then finally distorted heavy guitars and absolutely crazy solo and drum part in the middle and the outro. So I really enjoyed this track, and probably you understand by my emotional description, and this player really nicely fitting this track absolutely. And speaking about the compressions, actually, you know, it's the hardest part here, because and before the compressions, actually pairing. But here it's pretty simple, it's universal in terms of pairing. It's nice with super sensitive in-ear monitors with low level of background noise. But of course, turbo mode with tons of power for full-size cans will be also no problem, except of course the most power-hungry planars or something like that. And about compressions, actually it's a hard part, because this player is in the segment of the big boys, and I mean Astel & Kern Ultima. It's better sounding, more natural, more refined. Difference is not big, but it's audible. And but Ultima is more expensive, so it's correct in terms of price to quality ratio. But basically, in almost this price segment, we have two other strong competitors: Kane N8 and Lotu Po Gold Touch. And both of them are slightly by small hair forward in terms of naturalness, because Shanling trying to play more emotional, and sometimes it steps from naturalness and sounds more engaging instead. So in terms of sound, the two players are slightly forward, but this one is definitely ahead in terms of streaming capabilities, interface and other features. It's like you getting a bit of additional features. And comparing with players like Shanling M8, it's definitely noticeable step forward, because you know it's more refined, better rendering treble, better controlling deep bass, and so on. And FIO M17, for example, it's M17 more natural in some aspects and more dynamic, but actually FIO's M17 is not portable at all. And I don't know, Astel & Kern SP2000T, it's kind of Ultima with Ultima's coloration. This one is more dynamic and more boosted, more forward, so just another type of tuning. And in this segment, of course, subjective taste plays a more vital role. So to summarize everything, you know, it's probably the flagship created by Shanling for the Shanling sound fans. If you like the signature, if you like the sound of their players, just get M9 and you'll get the best possible Shanling house sound with tons of power, tons of modern features, and so on. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and of course have a nice day.